Starting and running a business is hard, but you don't have to do it alone. Whether you're an established business owner or thinking about starting a side hustle to earn extra income, I am here to teach you how to show up as your unfiltered self, level up your business, and thrive as a mompreneur. Let's embrace the chaos and start enjoying the journey together. I'm Amy Traw, and you're listening to the Motivated Mompreneur Podcast. Welcome back into the Motivated Mompreneur Podcast. I am joined today by Lauren Fonvielle of Mind Shift with Lauren. We are diving into tapping, EFT, all sorts of just tools that we can use as entrepreneurs, as moms, to really regain that calm that we're all desperately seeking in the chaos of life. Lauren, welcome in.
Thanks for having me today. I'm excited to chat with you.
Yes, I'm excited for this conversation too, because it's something that we all tend to kind of push off to the wayside, but is so important. So before we dive into that, can you share more about yourself, who you are, and what you do?
Yeah, so I am an integrative energy practitioner, which basically means that I use a variety of different healing modalities when I work with my clients. Before this work, I was in corporate marketing. And so I really work with a lot of entrepreneurs who also happen to be moms. And I combine this energy work of our mindset, how we think, with also the practical business things that you can do, because a lot of the time we can get stuck in our heads and not be taking the action that we want to be taking, that we know we should be taking, because we're having negative thoughts that are holding us back. So it's a combination of the energy work with the practical business stuff to help you to move forward in the direction and create the success and that you're looking for. That's really what I'm all about.
I love that, because mindset, I feel as though, is probably at least 75% of business, of
Yeah,
being an
at
entrepreneur,
least.
because what you can have everything going for you, but if you're holding yourself back, if you're so stuck in your head, you're not going to thrive. You're not going to flourish as a business owner. So talk us through how, in your corporate career though, how did you make this shift? Because that's a pretty big shift you made. So if you don't mind going into that, like, how did you go from corporate to now doing this amazing work?
Yeah. So I am also a military spouse. And so we moved locations. And when we moved locations, I had left that job and I was thinking about staying home with the kids, and I quickly realized I needed to work. I wanted to work. I missed it desperately. And so I started doing some freelancing work. And it was also at that time that we found out that my husband was going to deploy again. And this really it came out of left field, although we'd done deployments before. He was now in the reserves. So I was under the impression that this wasn't going to happen. And then all of a sudden we get notified of this. So my anxiety really started to skyrocket. I started to have panic attacks. And I knew that I needed to figure out a way to feel better. And my motivation was really to be a better mom for my kids. And I knew that I couldn't be the mom I wanted to be if I was having these episodes. And so I went on this journey of figuring out what was going to make me feel better. And it led me to becoming a trauma-informed yoga instructor. I was introduced to Reiki, sound healing, meditation, and then in a group coaching program, I was introduced to tapping. And tapping really was a big game changer for me. And when I was doing this freelance work and working with some of my clients, we would have these conversations about their work, and they would share thoughts that they were having or ways that they were feeling stuck. And I said, well, hey, I'm doing this thing called tapping. Do you want to try it with me? And so it really was an organic way. I just kind of started sharing it in that way. And then they started to see shifts. And that was an indicator to me, like, okay, this is like really working for me. It's working for other people. I'm going to go on and get certified. So I went on to get certified so that I could share it with other people. And then my business shifted a little bit from doing the marketing work to really doing more coaching. And that's really led me to where I am today.
That's incredible. Isn't it amazing how, looking back at our journeys, It kind of makes sense how everything played out, but you took something that you were going through, a struggle in your life, you found a solution, and now you're sharing that with so many other women. And that's incredible. Like, you should be proud of yourself for that
Oh,
because,
thanks. Yeah, yeah.
there's that need there and something helped you, and you're sharing that with the world. So, for those of our listeners that aren't familiar with tapping, what is tapping?
Yeah. So it's called EFT, it's called tapping. It's also EFT stands for emotional freedom technique. So it is this process of gently tapping on certain points of the body while simultaneously acknowledging the emotions that you feel. And I compare it to acupuncture because people are more familiar with acupuncture. So when you go to an acupuncturist, they take those tiny little needles and they put them in at certain points of the body. And with tapping, we're applying light acupressure to some of those same points. And what is happening is that it's helping to get your energy to move. It's also helping things to shift in your brain, right? Because when I was first introduced to this idea, I mean, it seemed very out there. It seemed very weird. I'm going to tap on myself and I'm going to feel less stressed. Okay. you know? Um, but then when I actually tried it, I'm like, whoa, I do feel different. What is happening? I was very curious about what was actually happening inside. And there are a lot of studies that back this up. And it has been shown to reduce the amount of cortisol in the body. So cortisol is the stress hormone. And so when you are when you're dealing with chronic anxiety, chronic stress, there is a lot of cortisol pumping through the body because the amygdala, which is the part of the brain that controls fight or flight, is sending that cortisol into your body, right? And while that can be helpful in situations where you need to run away, you need to fight back, you need to protect yourself, it's obviously not healthy or necessary, every single day when we're talking about chronic anxiety and stress. And so it reduces the amount of cortisol. And this particular study shows that it reduces it by up to 43%. So it's a really, really big number. So when you start to feel calmer in your body, then you can think more clearly. And when you can think more clearly, you're going to feel differently. And when you feel differently, you take different actions. And when you take different actions, you get different results. And that's what this is really all about. It's about shifting your mindset so that you feel differently, so you take different action, so you get the results that you're looking for. And, if you're listening to this and you're skeptical, it's okay. I was very skeptical when I first was introduced, but I would also say you're probably listening to this for a reason. And if you're someone who's dealing with a lot of stress and you've tried different ways of mitigating that, I would definitely encourage you to give this a try and see if it's going to be the thing that makes a difference for you, because there's no negative side effect with it. So,
That's awesome. And thank you for admitting that you were skeptical about it because, a lot of times people just are so quick to write something off. It's like, I don't know. But in order to make a change, you have to do something different, like you said. And it all goes back to mindset. So why not try it? Now, how would someone even begin to learn about this? Like, do you have different resources or do you teach courses? Or how do we even learn? Okay, this does sound interesting. I'm willing to give it a try. Where do we even start?
yeah. So I do teach classes and workshops, and I have a free masterclass on my website. So if you're curious about learning more about the science and actually experiencing it for yourself, you can visit my website, which is mindshiftwithlauren.com/masterclass. But there's also tons of videos on YouTube as well. And if you watch any one of those, you can learn from the practitioner where the points are, which is obviously an important part of this. And then the other important part of it is the words that you're using when you're tapping. And so the words that you're using are identifying how you're feeling. You're really able to hold space for how you're feeling. And I think as moms, we definitely don't do that enough. We're always worrying about somebody else. Somebody else is always in front of us. We're taking care of our babies, right? But we also need to fill our own cup. We need to acknowledge how we're feeling, because when we just shove down and ignore these uncomfortable feelings, we can do that for a limited amount of time and distract ourselves with something else, keep ourselves busy with some other thing, right? Cooking dinner, taking care of the kids, running them around to their activities. But eventually all these uncomfortable feelings that you've been shoving down are going to build up to a point where you're going to explode in some way. And that is undoubtedly going to affect how you're showing up in your business and also how you're showing up for your family. So we really need to take the time to acknowledge how we are feeling. And this is a very gentle tool that helps you to do that. So you start to say out loud how you're feeling, which also is a key component of this. So we're tapping and we're speaking out loud because sometimes we can think the same thoughts over and over and over again, and it can feel really true in our brains. But then when we start to say that thing out loud, it's like, oh my goodness, that just seems silly, or I can't believe I thought that, or there's power in saying something out loud. You can begin to create some distance from it so that you can think about it a little bit differently or see it a little bit differently, shift your perspective. And sometimes that's all you need to begin to create that cognitive shift, and that can be a powerful practice.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And just acknowledging those uncomfortable feelings can be uncomfortable.
Yes.
But that's where that awareness starts to come in. And they've shown in study after study that chronic cortisol, that high level of cortisol pumping through our bodies, that leads to a lot of health concerns down the road too, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, there are a lot of emotional components to physical pain. And so when we talk about stress, I think most people can relate to that. Yeah, when I'm really stressed or really anxious, where do you feel that in your body? Most people can answer that right away. Oh, I get, headaches, or I have a lot of pain in my neck and my shoulders, or I get chronic stomach aches, whatever it may be for you. But it's not just with anxiety and stress that this starts to come about. This is with any emotion that we are not paying attention to, that we are not allowing ourselves to feel. It can manifest itself physically. And then our bodies, I like to say, let our bodies start to scream, right? And then we have to pay attention at that point. You can't ignore it anymore. So I like the saying, we need to listen to our bodies when they whisper, so we don't need to hear them scream, right? We don't Nobody wants to hear their bodies scream, because then you're laid, who knows, you're laid up on the couch, you're uncomfortable, you're not able to show up again the way that you want to because you've been ignoring all this stuff for so long.
Right. And it is so easy to ignore, like you said, when you are navigating life and raising children, trying to run a business, all of these things. And our bodies are way smarter than we give them credit for. So, yes, start listening while it's whispering before it's
Yeah.
yelling. And then, turns into this whole other, spiral of issues for you. Now, is tapping a technique that can be used with kids as well?
Yes, yes. 100%. There's actually studies that are being done right now in Australia, and the tapping is being incorporated into the schools. And the studies are beginning to show that not only is it reducing children's anxiety and stress levels, but it's also improving their grades, which is pretty amazing. But it can definitely be used with kids. It can be used with really, really little ones. You can, tap on a stuffed animal and show them how to do it. You can I actually just finished working with a little boy who was 5 years old, who was having a lot of anxiety around getting on the bus when it was a new bus driver. And I guess the original bus driver had been in an accident, so when every day it was a new bus driver, and this little boy was not okay with that. And so then he would have these meltdowns, he wouldn't get on the bus, the mom is trying to work at 8 o'clock in the morning. It was really, disruptive to her day. So I worked with him for about 8 weeks. And in that time, he's now able to get on the bus and not have the meltdown. But we played a lot of Simon Says with the tapping with him. That was like a fun way for him to do it. Like, Simon Says tap on the side of your hand, and Simon Says to say this, and he got the hang of it. Like, kids are really smart. They're little sponges. They soak it up. And I think the somatic part of it, that you're actually tapping on yourself, it gives them something to do, and kids really seem to engage with it.
Yeah, I'm really excited to try this with my 9-year-old. She's a very high, just a high anxiety kid. Just, is a big ball of worry. And, it's good though that she's recognizing it, that she's like, I'm worried and I don't know why I'm worried, but I feel like this, because it's something where she's doing, maybe a great thing to try with her to
Yeah.
improve that awareness and start to gain control of that
Yeah.
anxiety and worry.
And that's, and I think that's typical not only for kids, but for adults too. Like sometimes you're just so overwhelmed and you're so stressed out, you might not even be able to articulate why. It's just like,
Yeah.
I'm really overwhelmed. And this is a great tool to use in those cases because you can then begin to narrow it down, hone in, notice where your mind goes, what thoughts start to arise. Is it a project that you're working on right now, which, you might correlate with that. Oh yeah, I'm stressed because I have to finish this project. Or does a memory pop up from your childhood that in your mind you're like, oh no, there's no way that's related. But I promise you, if a memory is coming up, even if it feels like it's unrelated, there is some sort of relationship there. And then you can explore that and see why that's coming up. And a lot of the time, we've had these past experiences with these emotions attached to them. And when they're uncomfortable emotions, we've shoved them down, we haven't processed them. So it can be layers and layers of emotion that has not been acknowledged that is leading you to where you're feeling today. So it's a great tool to help you to peel back those layers to figure out what's really going on and release it so that you can feel good.
Yeah. So you're literally tapping into that subconscious to bring that awareness and being able to then release it.
Exactly.
Incredible. And this isn't a tool that takes a ton of time to do, is it?
No, so it depends. You can do it for longer periods of time. When I work with my clients, I typically work for them for with an hour in an hour's time. But you can absolutely do this on a proactive basis and just tap for a couple minutes a day. And then in those situations where you're feeling the stress and anxiety really start to creep up, in those reactive situations, then you're going to be more likely to implement the tapping. So it can be used in either way, for short little stints or for longer periods of time, to really help you get to the root of what's going on.
Lauren, this was amazing information that you shared with us today. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to provide this value to our community. Where can we learn more?
Yeah, so you can go to that masterclass that I mentioned earlier, which is mindshiftwithlauren.com/masterclass. But if for the entrepreneurs that are out there, I also have a free group. And this is so helpful for entrepreneurs because when you have those limiting beliefs like, I can't do this, or who am I to be doing this, know that you're not alone. There's every other entrepreneur has had the same thoughts that you're having right now. And so it's a free group where people come together once a month. They bring whatever they're struggling with in their business, and then we tap in real time to help you reduce the anxiety and stress around that. And so you can register for that and to get reminders about that meeting, which is mindshiftwithlauren.com/tap dash into dash into success. Sorry. Tap dash into dash success.
Awesome. And we will be sure to link all of that up in the show notes. So just scroll down for that information. And until next time, mamas, stop dreaming and start taking messy action. You've got this. Are you loving what you're hearing? Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode.